Good evening, everyone. Okay, welcome to today's session. My name is Nugus, and I'll be your moderator for today. We are excited to have you all here for this enriching experience. And today we have a wonderful mentor who will share their insights and expertise on CV writing and how to get the best jobs. Our agenda for today includes first a presentation by mentors, and then we'll have a question and answer segment where you can interact directly with our esteemed mentor. Let's make this session interactive and engaging, and all of you are encouraged to put your videos on if you are in a suitable place. All of you are encouraged to put your videos on. Without further ado, we will begin. Before that, I have a quick announcement. We have for all creatives, entertainers, athletes, and innovators and startups, we are excited to offer a free legal clinic where you can get a 20-minute consultation with legal professionals. We urge you to take advantage of this opportunity to have your contracts reviewed and also to get expertise advice. What you have to do is to simply submit your documents through the registration link you can see in the picture. You can submit your documents through that link. It's my pleasure to introduce our mentor for today. Our mentor for today is, I'll begin with Miss Oyinkansola Olaniyan. My sincere apologies for mispronunciation. Miss Oyinkansola is a legal associate at MJ Partnership Solicitors. It's a full-service law firm whose tentacles spread across oil and gas, real estate, capital market, state planning, corporate compliance, as well as company secretarial services. In addition to being a seasoned legal practitioner, she is passionate about walking job seekers toward their happy places by ingeniously crafting original, well-researched, well-drafted, industry-compliant, and also aesthetically pleasing CVs, cover letters, statements of purpose, motivation letters, and also letters of intent. Over the course of 3 years, she has single-handedly prepared over 65 CVs for clients in different levels of different career paths across different states within and outside of Nigeria. Outside of Nigeria, it includes the United Kingdom, Canada, several of whom have landed dream jobs and admissions in their choice of schools abroad for their preferred courses. Oyin is a multi-potentialite who, in addition to being a first-class graduate of law from Bonn University, she is also a certified copywriter and digital marketer, leader, PCOS advocate, blogger, and photographer, among others. Our second mentor for today will be Miss Oluwation Pudikombe. Once again, apologies for mispronunciation. Miss Pudikombe is an HR professional and career fitness coach with multi-sectorial work experience spanning aviation, business services, consulting, insurance, broadcast media, and microfinance banking. She has acquired skills and competences in client services, relationship management, and human capital management, with a strong bias for talent development and employability skills. A medical student turned HR professional, she started Toyin Talks Talent, known as T3, a coaching and mentoring platform in response to her first-hand experience of the negative impact of a mismatch between natural talents and course of study. At T3, young professionals are guided to find their career fit by discovering their talents, developing them through fit for purpose capacity building sessions so that they can deploy and demonstrate these talents in the workplace. Her passion for developing young professionals inspired her to found the T3 Torchbearers Academy, also known as T3TA, which is on a mission to impart the next generation of African professionals by providing them with practical skills, nurturing their talents, and instilling values that drive success while navigating the world of work. She has been recognized for her efforts by the HR Foundry, LinkedIn, Bootcon, and TGE Association of Elite Human Resources Professionals for her work with young professionals and inspiring professionals to take ownership of their careers. Her weekly newsletter titled The Talent Guide, with more than 23,000 subscribers, has made it to the LinkedIn newsletters to explore 6 times. She holds several human resources certification and is happily married with children. Without further ado, after introducing our mentors, if our mentors are ready for today, then you have 20 minutes for presentation. If our mentor is ready, we can proceed with the presentation.
Good evening. If you can hear me, please let me know.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, am I going first or?
First is Miss
Sorry?
Pudikombe. First is Miss Pudikombe.
All right then.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Okay, because I was unclear on who would go first, because introduce her first. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone, for attending this session. I've been told to have 20 minutes, so I guess I should get into it because we have quite a bit to cover, and the subject of CV writing isn't one that you can typically exhaust because there's so many dimensions to it. I don't know if I have the, I can share my screen. Do I have the authority or the rights to share my screen? Or do I just go ahead and talk? I don't need to, I understand I'm supposed to share slides. So can I share my screen?
Yes, Ma, you can.
Yes. Fantastic. All right, thank you. Kindly let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm gonna go to presentation mode now. All right, so CV writing and getting the best jobs is the subject of today's discourse. Like I said, it's not one that we can exhaust, but I'm happy I have someone else to support me in having this conversation. Happen is that when something becomes a cliche, we tend to forget the original reason why these things exist. So a CV, as we all should know, it stands for curriculum vitae. That's a Latin word. It's a document used when applying for jobs. Now, one of the first things I want to highlight here is that there's a difference between sharing your CV and applying for a job. A lot of people who are looking to gather CVs for a specific role have gone into the habit of saying things like, send your CV to, send your CV to. But what they're really saying is that send your application to. And what that means is you have to talk a little bit about what makes you fit for the job. So just sending your CV without any sort of narrative in the body of the email is going to make you just that less likely to be considered for the role. Now, we do have some instances where all the person who is asking for CV wants is the CV, and then you have to put more work into your CV. But just as a note, if you're going to be sending your CV for a job, do put a little bit of effort in writing a short narrative about why you're a fit, and don't just send your CV by email. So that's an aside. So a CV is a document that allows you to summarize your education, your skills, and experiences, which enables you to successfully sell your abilities to potential employers. Now, one dimension I usually like discussing when I want to talk about CVs is what I call the pre-application process. And for me, that is the thinking that goes into why I want this job and how I put my best foot forward. Now, when you are a young professional or you've just graduated from the university, the tendency is for you to believe that since you've never had a formal job where you're earning a salary, then you really have absolutely no experience. But I want you to know that if you come into the labor market with that mindset, you're already kind of doing yourself a disservice, because the expectation is that the university education doesn't just include you're going to lectures and whatnot. It also includes some of the extracurricular activities that you may have partaken in while you were in school. And so you have some qualities even at that level that you can use to add value to a business, even at that early stage of your career. This is where things like knowledge, skills, and attributes come into play. And that involves, like I mentioned, extracurricular activities. So what I've done here is to highlight some of the attributes that we find valuable in people from different stages of their career. So if you're an entry-level person, like a university graduate, after your NYSC, you're looking to step into the labor market for the first time, some of the things we admire and we love about you is that you are energetic, you are eager to learn, you're also teachable, and you are very comfortable with digital tools and how to manipulate them. So right off the bat, you have that going for you as you step into the labor market. So you don't go in thinking I have nothing to offer. So yes, to an extent, you're a blank slate, but you already have some skills that you're bringing with you, okay? As you go up in your career at the junior level, there are other attributes. You're driven, you're more collaborative, you're innovative, you're flexible, you're used to handling your own role, and you become somewhat of a specialist. By the time you get to the mid-level, where you are managing people, you start developing or honing further your leadership skills. You have some good knowledge, grounded knowledge and competencies in your area of expertise, and then you're able to think strategically because of the nature of your role. And of course, by the time you get to the senior level, you're a subject matter expert, you're highly influential, and some of these attributes become beneficial to the business, all right? So let's get into the meat of writing the CV, and I'm glad I have someone who is going to be talking about that as well. So I can focus on some of the aspects, and then she can finish up. So I'm going to be putting them in form of tips, and because my time is limited, and I'll try to elaborate a little bit on each one. So the first thing I would say is to tailor your CV to each job. And most people tend to think, well, not say most people, some people have made the argument that, look, if you have a well-written CV, you really don't have to change much in it. But what I would say, the reason we talk about tailoring or customizing, right, is because whatever job you're going after may demand different skills. Imagine you have 5 skills. Some jobs may require you to highlight maybe 3 of them. Some jobs may require to highlight just 2. And so when you are applying for a job, what you want to do is to allow them to see those skills that they want for the role they're advertising for, which is why we say tailor your CV to each job. So imagine that as an HR professional, my last job was more interested in my recruitment and selection capabilities and my payroll capabilities, right? And then the next one I'm going for is more interested in my background in learning and development. I'm not going to share the same CV I shared with the person who asked for recruitment and selection and payroll, because that is what I would have emphasized in that CV. So what I'm going to emphasize in my CV now is that part of my skill set that they are advertising for with the job description. I hope that is clear. The next thing is to craft a compelling profile statement. Now, another thing people tend to de-emphasize is that introductory paragraph that talks about, that kind of summarizes your work history. To an extent, for a lot of recruiters, that portion tells them whether they want to move forward to the rest of your CV or not. So what I say is that those things in the job description that are highlighted are those things that you should bring up to the first page of your CV, right? And so in a profile statement, for instance, I would say things like highlight your key skills and what you bring to the table, which aligns with what they're asking for in the job description that was published, okay? So by putting that in that portion of your CV, you're already making the recruiter more interested in learning more about you. 3, highlight your education and relevant coursework. To be honest with you, I'm of the school of thought that says, look, if the education part is not what is emphasized in the JD, that's the job description, then you don't have to put it on the first page of your CV, in my opinion. If the skills are what they're after, so what you want to show them is the skills. You are educated, right? Or else you wouldn't qualify to apply, right? So your education will be part of it, but focus on the skills. However, if they say, for instance, that one of the requirements for this job is an MBA, and you happen to have one, putting that on the first page already makes the recruiter more amenable to reading the rest of your CV, because it's a particularly emphasized part of the JD that you've highlighted in your CV, right? But it's important that you take that into consideration when you're configuring your CV. Number 4, showcase your internships and volunteer experience. Now, this is particularly for those who are newbies in the labor market. If you're an experienced hand, you may not need to do this as much in terms of front and center in your CV, unless that is the experience that is more aligned with the role that you are going after. Just as an example, I do a lot of work with through my NGO, which is T3 Torchbearers Academy, right? So imagine, for instance, I want to apply for a job that emphasizes the kind of skills I gain there. Trust me, that will be one of the first things I'll put on my CV, right? So, and that is something I'm not getting paid for as such. So in a way, it's a volunteer experience. So if that volunteer experience is more relevant to the JD, then by all means put it, even as an experienced professional. But if you're a newbie into the labor market, like I've said, that would form the bulk of the formal work experience you would have had so far. So that would constitute most of what you're discussing in your CV. Number 5, emphasize transferable skills. Now, transferable skills are those skills that are relevant to every workplace, regardless of industry, regardless of sector. So regardless of where you work, you're going to need things like communication skills, like problem-solving skills, like teamwork and adaptability. Those ones transcend jobs, they transcend sectors, they transcend industries. So emphasize those skills in your CV. Use action verbs and quantify your achievements. One of the things that we don't do so well in this part of the country is that we don't tie our activities to business results. So I've seen loads of CVs over my experience, and what I tend to see is that people tend to be very prosy when they are discussing their achievements, right? So they'll say things like, you organize a file. They'll say that I did ABCD to improve efficiency. That's fine, that's great, but how or by how much? If your efficiency was 50% before, if you're saying you improve it, that means you're improving it to more than 50%. And those numbers should feature in your CV, because it's those numbers that drive business strategy. And people want to see that you understand that your activities are contributing towards the achievement of something. So use action verbs like, you led something, you developed something, you initiated something, you introduced something, you implemented something, you designed, you created, you spearheaded, you collaborated. Those are the sort of things that we mean by action verbs. They show you as being a participant, not a spectator, right? So when you're going to express the things that you've done, use those action verbs to show that you actually had like hands-on, first-hand experience with that thing. List your technical skills. So what are the things that you know how to do? Even as a fresh graduate, some things that you know in terms of knowledge would be the thing that you studied in university, right? And maybe some other skills you gain along the way, like your Microsoft Office skills and whatnot. So you want to list those skills to show that these are the things that you can do practically, right? Avoid jargon and keep it simple, right? Now, in a way, I'm going to be a bit, I'm going to amend this a little bit. Now, if you are in an industry that has some specific terms that everybody tends to know about, you can drop a few of those in your CV to show that you are in that industry. But what you don't want to do is to use so much of it that it tends to put off people who are reading your CV. So I would say maybe not technically, don't avoid jargon completely, but you have to be very familiar with those terms. And the person you are sending it to also has to be familiar with those terms so that communication actually takes place, okay? So if I'm working oil and gas and my CV is littered with O&G jargon, like business terms is what we mean by that. And then I'm going into broadcasting or I'm going to banking and I leave my CV with all those jargon without explaining what they mean, I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot, okay? Include keywords. Now, keywords are specific action terms that refer to or competencies that refer to specific roles. So as an HR professional, keywords for me will be things like recruitment. There'll be things like training or learning and development. There'll be things like reward management or payroll administration. There'll be things like maybe emotional intelligence and et cetera, et cetera. They are specific to my kind of industry, right? So you want to use those terms and mimic what you have in the JD when you're putting together your CV. And then finally, keep it professional. Avoid personal details. Something that a lot of us tend to do in this part of the world, and I think we are all from different parts of Africa, if I'm correct. We use things like, oh, I'm from this local government, I'm male or female, I'm married or single, and that is actually unnecessary information. There are specific cases where they ask, and I don't know that it's become a law somewhere because we tend to avoid that to prevent discrimination, right? So that people who are females are not discriminated against because they're females, and vice versa. People who are male discriminated against because they're males. So unless they specifically request, it's best to leave it out. It's not very necessary. Now, one thing I want to say, and I don't know how much time I'll have left, I'd appreciate if somebody is giving me some indication, is that a lot of work nowadays is about your skills. What can you do? Right. Some time ago, there was a debate, right, on, this NYSC thing, no NYSC. So in Nigeria, NYSC is your mandatory 1-year service that you do after you graduate from school. And there was this conversation that, look, if someone has the skills you're looking for, especially like tech skills, which are like hotcakes nowadays, and they don't have the NYSC yet, do you now then disqualify them from a job that you need the skills for because they haven't done the NYSC? So that is still going on. I think statutorily right now, you still have to do it. But skills are what the employers are looking for, right? So when you're writing your CV, be very, very skills forward in the way you express the things that you've done on your job, all right? So the formats you have should be skills based, so that you, like I mentioned, highlighting your skills, optimizing your keywords. We talked about keywords as well. We talked about quantifying your skills, talking about your transferable skills. You have to list some of these things so that it's clear to the person who is looking at your CV that these are some things you have experience with. We talked about skills clusters as well. Like if I'm writing my CV and I want to say, okay, I'm listing here my technical skills, I'm listing here my soft skills, so that there's the recruiter can see, okay, these are the things in terms of technical skills I know how to do. These are the things in terms of soft skills I know how to do. That tends to help as well. In some cases, you can do your proficiency. How well can you perform that particular skill? Again, a word of caution. Sometimes skills proficiency can be subjective, right? If you ask me, for instance, how proficient am I in Microsoft Excel, I'll say, oh, I'm like a 7 or an 8, but that's my opinion. So what I would say instead is, if it's depending on the role, if you can describe exactly what you can do in that Microsoft Excel. So for instance, if there's specific softwares that you have proficiency in, you can mention them by name. If it's Microsoft Excel, for instance, you can talk about whether you can use macros. Oh, I know how to use pivot tables. I know how to do A. I know how to do B. So rather than worrying about whether you're a 7 or an 8 or a 2 or a 3, you can talk about exactly what you can do. I need to round up a little because I'm very conscious of time, and I know there are other speakers that have to come up. So include your skills in your summary that we talked about as well. Some evidence within your work experience to show how well you know how to do these skills. And when you come to the interview session, that's also going to be something that will be required. So don't just say, I know how to do this. You'll be required, you'll need to back that up. And of course, always, always continue learning. Now, in terms of formatting, the look and feel of your CV. Now, people advise keep it to 1 or 2 pages. Recruiters don't have the time to go through 3, 4 pages. As you go rise in your career, obviously you've done more, so you have more to say, and it's expected. So by the time you're stepping into maybe from 7 to 10 to 15 years, we know your CV is going to be longer and richer. So it's not as important to them at that point how long your CV is. But when you're in the early part of the career, as much as possible, keep it to 1 to 2 pages, because there are many, many people who will be applying, and you don't want to be lost in the pool and the deluge of CVs that apply, or candidates rather, that apply for a job. Use a clean, modern layout. Avoid things like fonts that are old-fashioned. Times New Roman is one that I don't like personally. It's a personal thing. I own it. It's a personal thing, because one of the earlier fonts you see, and so it speaks archaic or analog to me. So I would say things like use Arial, Calibri, in some cases Verdana, and there's some other ones that they're adding now to make your CV look, modern and, what do we call it now? Like digital forward. I'm saying, like, it's coming into the modern age. It doesn't look like something old. Organize your sections clearly. Use your headings. If you want to make your headings bold or underlined, be consistent in your formatting, so that for things like, professional profile, work experience, education, trainings attended, things like that, they are all the headings. If they are bold and underlined, make sure you do that consistently throughout your CV. Use reverse chronological order, which means from most recent to earliest, not from earliest to most recent. So you don't want to start with a job that you did in 2008. You start with the one that you're on now, and then work your way back. White space is your friend. Make your CV readable. It's like, imagine that someone needs some room to breathe, right? So make your CV readable. Don't choke everything into all together without space between lines, and we can't see things. It just discourages people from going forward, really. So use your white space wisely. Use bullet points, limit paragraphs. We don't want long, winding narratives. We want so that we can see clearly what it is that you're saying. Use a professional file name, and I would even say use a professional email address as well. The safest one is name.surname@whatever.com. Things like, sexy babe, Jesus boy, and things like that, you can use for your personal email for things that don't have to do with professional. But when you are going to professional setting, as much as possible, stick with first name dot last name for email. And then when you're saving your CV to, it should be your first name, last name, CV.com. Now, some people recommend using a PDF format, which is good because it tends to keep your CV looking the way you want it to look at. But check for specifications. If they say they want it in Word format or some other format that they say they want it, just be mindful of that. But if not, PDF is usually a good one. And of course, you have to proofread thoroughly so that you don't have things like spelling errors, or your things are jumping from place to place. Make sure that it is neat, it is appealing to the eye, because whether we like it or not, beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. If I look at something and it looks nice, excuse me, please, I'm more inclined to read it. Errors that are common in CV. I'm just going to rush through this, if you just allow me. Remove irrelevant, obsolete skills that are not, contemporary. Let the JD be your guide, okay? Include, like I said, I think what the first one kind of answer, or second one kind of answers the first one. Include contemporary skills, especially digital skills that are relevant to your particular space. Some people at point 3 just write where they worked and then their title, their designation. So I would say ABCD and Sons HR officer, this date to that date, and I move to the next one, DFD and Daughters HR executive. I don't list the things that I did or what I accomplished. Please, please, please do not write your CV that way. We talked about using active words, so don't be passive, be active. Don't leave out your achievements, make them smart, quantifiable. Please avoid unnecessary graphics and colors. There are only a few sectors that would be welcome. So you have to be very, very strategic in how you use those things because it tends to be very distracting, one. And two, if you pass this through an ATS system, it's likely to distort your CV. This one seems to be an obvious one, but people tend to leave it out sometimes. Vital contact information. Your phone number, in Nigeria here, it's 11 digits, and then you see some phone numbers that are 9 digits or 10 digits because they left some figure out. So avoid that, please. We talked about formatting, we talked about spelling and grammatical errors. Cliches in your summaries, your professional summaries. I'm a team player, I work under pressure. Avoid those things. It feels lazy because it's what everybody writes, but instead be genuine, be authentic, and be intentional about the words that you use. We've talked about irrelevant information. We've talked about not aligning your experiences with expectations for the role, which comes to things like tailoring your CV. You need to be very careful about that too. Some people, like I mentioned with chronological order, put what they did first, their very first experience first, and then their most recent last. Don't do that. And then don't be dishonest. Don't bend the truth. Don't put anything in your CV that you cannot defend. Now, finally, we're getting to the portion where we talk about getting the best jobs. This VRIO system that I wanted to discuss, I'm going to look I really need to know how much time I have. I'm very conscious of it because I don't want to take up more time. Okay, I only have a few more minutes. Okay, so let me quickly rush through this or tell you what this is and then get to the final slide. So VRIO really is a way for you to measure how you rank against other candidates that may be vying for the same role with you. And essentially what it means is that the closer you are to the JD1, and then the more distinguishable or the more sought after your skills and abilities are, the better positioned you are to get the jobs because you have those things that others may not have. So for instance, everybody has a first degree. So that takes you to the first level of V, right? Valuable. By the time you come to rare, you now begin to separate yourself a little bit. What are those things that you have that not just everybody has? For example, you graduate from university, you already have your ICANN certification. That is not very common. It's not like hugely uncommon, but it's not as common. Most people leave school before they do their ICANN. But if you leave school, you already have your ICANN, that already sets you apart for an accounting role than everybody else who doesn't. By the time you move to the I, you have extra things, like maybe you leave secondary school, you have your ICANN, doing your IT or something, you're able to work with KPMG for about a month or two. Things like that tend to separate you into a class of your own and make the job more likely to be offered to you because you've distinguished yourself. That is really what this VRIO means. And I think I've summarized it. So if you want to know more, you can reach out to me at tonytalkstalent@gmail.com and we can have a conversation. Now, strategies to get the best jobs. And I think these ones kind of speak for themselves. Build a strong professional network. Even those people you meet in the university, to be honest with you, you really don't know where this will end up in life. So it's good to have a good character in front of anyone, regardless of who they are or where you meet them. There are people now, I mean, you know when it happens, when your parents can contact someone somewhere, maybe in NYSC or in some place that, give my son a job, or do you have a job for my daughter? These are networks that they built right from, when they were in university, right? So networking is very important, and not just meeting the people, but maintaining the relationships. Use LinkedIn effectively. Learn how to use it. It's a very valuable tool. I can't tell you how often I've been reached out to from LinkedIn. Oh, we saw your profile. We have this role. Would you be interested, etc., etc., etc. It's a valuable tool, and it's all about professional networking and everything professional. So have a good footprint there. We talked about tailoring every application. We seek internships and volunteering. So valuable. I can't talk too much about it, but what I can tell you is that one of the things you tend to do when you're volunteering, because there's no pressure of targets, there's no pressure of, salaries being paid or somebody getting offended at something or other, because this is something voluntary, right? You tend to be more relaxed and more open to learning in such scenarios. Work with recruiters and headhunters. There are people who do that. We can talk about people like, sites like Jobberman that invite you to upload your CV, then they send you alerts. LinkedIn does this as well when jobs that match your CV come up. So put your CV on some of those sites. There are actually also sites that you can use to find out if your CV is ATS compliant for a specific role that you want. So you can Google those sites as well. Focus on personal branding, right? And I think enough isn't being said, especially to young people, about creating a personal brand. You are not your job. Your job is not you. If you are your job, then you may run into trouble, because once that job goes, then what's next is the question. If people are with you only because of where you work and not what you can offer in terms of skills and competencies, then you need to set yourself up in a different way. Identify target companies. There's some specific companies that you want to work at. What does it take to work there? Look for someone who has the role you desire. What are their skills? What is the education? What is the thing that they do that makes them eligible to work in those places? And then you can see how you can work towards acquiring some of those things, or what you can do as an alternative to some things if some of them seem unattainable. Continuous learning and upskilling can never be overemphasized. They deceive us into thinking that once we graduate, our learning ends. And I can tell you 100% that is a lie. It is a lie. In fact, the higher you go, the more learning you need to do, because trends are always changing and you have to keep abreast of all of them. So continue learning, continue upskilling, because no matter how old you get, I can tell you there's something new that's going to come out in your industry, and you have to know if you want to be at the cutting edge of events and have access to the best jobs. And I think I have finished now. I don't know if I have time for question and answers, but thank you again for this opportunity. Let me hand back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Purikombe. It was a very nice and thoughtful presentation. Next, we'll move into our next mentor, Ms. Oyin Kansola. If you are with us, you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jiipcc. Thank you for this opportunity. I have just about 20 minutes, so I'm going to go right in. Okay, so Mrs. Purikombe has said a lot about CV writing, and I must say that I myself have learned a lot. Thank you very much for that session, ma'am. I've connected with you on LinkedIn, so we probably would continue the conversation. So since she has mentioned a lot about CV writing, I'm going to save time and not say much about it. But please, could you share your screen? Could you share the presentation from your screen? Okay. Thank you. So you can go to the next slide. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay. So there's something I call the job hunt cycle. It is what I term as the beginning to the end of your session to getting a job of your dream. So it starts with preparation, interview. It starts with preparation, sorry, then CV writing, and then application and interview. And so let's go right to the preparation stage. So the preparation stage is that point where you get yourself ready for exactly where you want to be. That is where you gather everything that is going to be in that CV that you want to write. That is where you it's like you're traveling, you have a journey to make, and then you have to pack your luggage. So this preparation time is where you pack everything that you actually need to get that dream job that you're looking for. So the first one I have here is to get good grades. I don't know. I don't know if that narrative is still being peddled, but I've heard from some cutters that what you need now is just experience. Nobody really needs good grades anymore. You don't have to get a first class, you don't have to get a 2-1 and all of that. But I assure you that recruiters are still very keen on people that have good grades. This is not to say that if you don't have good grades, your own has finished in life. No, that's not at all. But I'm saying that while you still can, please get good grades, because before you can be able to defend your skills and your experience, the first thing that they would see on your CV is your academic journey, your academic prowess, your degree, your grades. So please, while you still can, get good grades. Next is you should decide your career path early. So I'm saying this because I feel like I'm speaking to a lot of law students and probably early law graduates. While if you can, because I know it can be hard trying to pick a particular field of law, because I've been there as well. But if you can, please try as much as possible to make a decision on a particular path, a particular career path that you want to take, whether it is intellectual property or energy or fintech or property, whatever it is that you want to do. Decide early. This is going to help you to build your career and to build your experiences in that path, not just going up and down, doing this internship, doing that internship, taking this job, taking that job without a particular destination in mind. So you should decide on career path early. Next is to get the experience. So I say this because I see many people reach out to me, oh, I want to write my CV. And I say, okay, please let me have what you currently have. Let me see what you currently have, so that okay, let me see what you currently have, and then you fill a form for me with all your experiences and everything. And then I see that there's almost nothing in the CV. And I'm like, do you want me to perform a magic or what? So no matter the stage that you are at, whether you are in 100 level, 200 level, there is always something out there that you can do that would be an experience that you can put on your CV. Get a job. Apply for internships. Get an internship to do. Carry on personal projects. Volunteer. Do a lot of things. Upskill. Do something. Take a course. Take a certification. Just make sure that you are not obsolete, you are not idle. There's something going on in your life that you can actually put on your CV. Eventually, what people that don't have empty CVs and have not been doing all these things is because they probably lie on their CV. And people that lie on their CV, I think what you need to know is that when you lie, your recruiter can see through you. When you say that this is something that you have done or you can do, best believe they know that you are unable to do it, and that would also determine whether they would really keep to their word of saying, oh, we'll get back to you. So do something, get the experience, get the skills that you need to put in your CV, take a professional course, take certifications, and acquire soft skills. So a lot of things are not being said about soft skills because, or maybe we think that they are not the things that we need to become bulldozers in courts, or they are not the things that we need in the boardroom or whatnot. But soft skills are very important. This is the 21st century, and recruiters are looking out for your soft skills. So get soft skills like leadership, organizational skills, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, and necessary soft skills like that. They are also necessary for your skill section. Then sharpen the technical skills that you have. If you are a lawyer, sharpen the skills that are technical to your industry, that are technical to your profession as a lawyer. If you're an accountant, sharpen your skills in accounting. If you are an engineer, sharpen your skills in engineering. Just make sure that when you are done gathering all these things and you pack them in your luggage, you're actually not just you're not making a bluff. You actually have these things and you can defend them. Then this is the 21st century, like I said, and you need tech skills. No matter how we try to dismiss it, because we are in the legal profession, you need tech skills. So look for something, even if you don't want to code, look for non-code tech skills that you can learn. They are always a plus to you, to your CV, to your pedigree. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first presenter, Mrs. Podikome, has said a lot about CV writing, and like I said, I'm going to save time by not speaking so much about it again. So the import of this particular slide is just to tell you that your CV is your first point of contact with your recruiter. That is, if you are not going through maybe relationship, if you're not going through the relationship route, or you are not going through LinkedIn route, your first point of contact with your recruiter or with your prospective employer is your CV. So you have to put a lot of effort into it. Effort put into CV writing is always rewarded, believe me. Next slide, please. Okay, so Mrs. Oluwatoyin has said a lot about tips for writing a good CV, a great CV. So that was actually supposed to be what would be my next slide, but I'll just give you the outline of what your CV should be like. That is, if we have very young undergraduates on the call and are not so they're not so aware of what they're supposed to do. So when you're writing a great CV or a winning CV, there are some things that are necessary to be there. The first one will be your heading. That's your full name. And when I say you should write your full name in correct order, I mean that if you're writing your surname first, that means a comma should come after. And if you're writing your first name first, I hope we know the difference between first name and surname. Your first name is the name your parents call you, or the first name on your birth certificate. That's your first name. And then your surname is your family name, your dad's name. So if you're writing your surname first, you have to have a comma beside it. Or if you're writing your first name first, then you would not have to use a comma. If you have a third name, you can include your third name as well, but write your full name. And if you have professional certifications, like maybe you've done your ICANN or some professional course, you can put the qualification beside your name, or maybe ACAIRB, whatever, or AICMC or ACA, if I'm correct. So you should put that beside it. And then, like Mrs. Oluwatoyin said, your correct phone number. Be careful as not to miss a figure. Your email address, like she said, please use a professional email address. Don't use Ade for sure or some other funny names. No, not nicknames, please. Use a professional email address. If you have a LinkedIn profile that you are very active on, you can include a URL link to your LinkedIn page as well. And then your location. When I say not your full home address, you should not put, number 1, Apapa Street, Awolowo Road, Ibadan. No. If you're putting your location, just put maybe Ibadan or Lagos. The reason you are doing this is because some recruiters they post vacancies that are location specific. So you hear things like the person must reside in Lagos, or the office is located in Lagos. So if you are applying for that kind of job and your CV says you don't have an address that you can stay in Lagos and the only address that you have is Osogbo, it might be disadvantageous to you. Next is your profile summary. I like to say that your profile summary is like the princess of your CV. That's like the most important thing because it's like the only part of your CV that you have to generate by yourself. If you're talking about your education, you can just remember where you studied and then the degree that you got, the year and all of that. All of that are just, you telling your life story and all of that. But your profile summary is like the source to your CV. So I like to say be very intentional about getting a very good, captivating profile summary. And then after your profile summary comes your education, your skills and competencies, your certifications, your memberships and awards. So about certifications, I see that fresh graduates, some of them are like, I don't have any certification, I don't have anything. Let me give you a hack. If you are a new graduate and you have done your National Youth Service, you have a certificate. And the reason why your NYSC certificate is going to be relevant on your CV is because in Nigeria, if you're a graduate, no company, no regulatory compliance company or office or organization is going to employ you if you have not done your compulsory National Youth Service. So having that on your CV is a plus. So when you come to that, so it's a plus. It's a plus for you. It's a certification that you can put, but of course also get the weightier professional certifications that you need. Then your memberships. Okay, so if you are a lawyer, you can add that you are a member of the NBA or you are a member of the institute, the Chartered Institute of Mediators and Conciliators or the Institute of Chartered Arbitrators and all of that. You can add that you're a member. And then your awards, if you have relevant awards, probably leadership awards or something thereabouts, maybe you got from undergraduate days and all of that. That makes me remember, if you're still in school, please make good use of your undergraduate days. Very good use of your undergraduate days. Go for conferences, go for trainings, do a lot of relevant internships so that when you're out of school, your CV will not be empty. It will not be like you're just starting your life and then the recruiter is just looking
we're not able to hear
at you
you.
like, where has this person been all their life? So make very good use of your undergraduate days. If you are privileged, I know that I have nothing less than at least 6 months of that time. Next, you have the conferences that you've attended, then your publications, your research experience. This is especially for academic CVs, or if you are applying for a scientific job, maybe a lecturing job, or maybe you are a laboratory science is a laboratory scientist or whatnot. That's even if that relates to us, because I think most of us here are lawyers, but it is also good for you to have your publications on your CV. It shows intellectuality. Then your referees. For your referees, I like to say that you keep their information private until it is requested specifically by your prospective employer or your recruiter, because this is Nigeria and having the details of your referees out there and sent to many organizations is not safe for anyone. So yeah. Next slide, please. Next, okay, please go to the next slide, because we've talked about the tips for a leading CV. Mrs. Twing has taught us a lot about that, so let's not waste the time. Making applications. Okay, great. So in our job hunt cycle, we have gone from preparation, to CV writing, and now we are at the stage of making applications. So I thought of making this particular slide because a friend reached out to me. I was like, oh, you made my CV, so what has been the problem? I've been sending out my CV, or I've been making applications and I've not been getting callbacks. What do you think is the problem? Is that my CV is not great, or it's because of my results and all of that? So these points and a few others are the information. I mean, the things I told the person. So the first thing is, this has been said, always send your CV in PDF format. The reason why you're sending your CV in PDF format is because when you send it in a Word format, I don't know if you've noticed. Okay, let's take, for example, this PowerPoint presentation. I sent it in the normal PowerPoint presentation format, and it's looking like this. This is not the font I prepared it with, and of course there's been some distortion in the organization. So when you send your CV out as a Word form, in Word formats, you are setting up yourself for being seen or being tagged as being disorganized, because everything is going to scatter. That's if you arrange it well, if you arrange your CV properly. So a lot of things are going to scatter. It's going to even be worse if maybe the HR was not at the office when your CV came in, and then he or she probably just opens up your application on the phone while in transit or something. So it's always best to send your CV in PDF format. Next is send your CV as an attachment to a well-composed error-free mail. Like the first thing that Mrs. Stoyin said is that when they say you should send your CV to something, they actually mean that you should make an application. So if you're not sending a cover letter, an extra cover letter, even if you are sending a proper cover letter, your email should not be empty. The email that you are sending it with should not be empty. It's if you send a proper application, a proper email, well worded, error-free email, the person receiving it will take you seriously. It's just more professional, and they'll take you more seriously, no matter whatever is in your CV. They tend to just show you an extra thread of favor. So next, like I said, if you're not attaching a separate cover letter, let the body of your email count for a proper application letter. That means if you are sending a cover letter, the content of your cover letter should be you basically saying the reasons why you are fit for the job. So highlighting your achievements, your academic achievements, your professional achievements, your work experience, your skills, and all of that. So if you are not sending a proper cover letter with your CV, let your application do the job. So that does not mean that your email should now be so long, because formal letters, your email is like a formal letter. So, and formal letters are known for being short and concise, but make sure you convey all the necessary information that you need. Then yes, study the recruitment season of your desired organization and apply early once that season is open. So I say this because many law firms, especially tier 1 law firms, and not even just law firms, but let me just stay with law firms because that's why that's why I have more authority. Many law firms have a particular season where they recruit new talents, or where they recruit new lawyers. So that particular time for new graduates or new interns is okay. So for interns, they look at the time that private school students are almost done with their second semester. So once you're in your second semester, be on the lookout. That's if you're looking for an internship. Be on the lookout. Follow them on Twitter, follow them on LinkedIn. Be the first to know when they post it. But for lawyers, that's for trainees, their particular season is just toward the end of law school. So if you are aware of law school calendar, once they are getting toward the end of the law school calendar, I mean the law school session for that year, it's usually in the Ember months. That's when the law school calendar was still very stable, but it was usually in the Ember months from like July, August, September, and all of that. So those are the seasons. That's like the season, sorry, where they employ new lawyers, and they call them trainee associates or associate trainees or graduate trainees. So basically, study the recruitment season. And the reason why you're studying the recruitment season is because if you send an application when your desired organization is not looking to employ any staff, the truth of the matter is they are not even likely to open your application because they are not checking it at that time. They don't need more people at that time. So study the time that they need people and then position yourself to be seen. Next is apply to organizations that actually need you. And this for lawyers again, if you are applying to a tier 1 law firm that has closed its season of application, or has closed its season, or they don't even recruit senior lawyers from outside, and you're applying, it will take a lot, maybe a particularly spectacular CV or brand for them to actually look into processing your application, or even a miracle. So if you're applying to, it's like going somewhere that you are knocking the door of a house that nobody is in the house. There's nobody that's going to answer you. So apply to where you actually needed. Look out for vacancies. Look out for advertisements of vacant positions that you want. There are so many of them, lots of them on LinkedIn, lots of them on Jobberman, lots of them on Indeed and all of that. So look out for people, companies, organizations, or firms that are actually looking for you. It's going to be easier for you that way, so that it will not be like the HR of that particular organization is snubbing you or whatnot. Next is set job alerts. Set job alerts on LinkedIn, set job alerts on Jobberman, Indeed, and all of those other platforms, so that you know when a firm is on the lookout. Okay, so I think I missed this. If you are a new graduate, or maybe you have been called to by maybe a year at the bar or 2 years at the bar, and then you are trying to get a job in a particular organization, and you're like, oh no, I'm too big for that. Well, I'm too big for a graduate trainee position. The truth of the matter is, the graduate trainees of some firms are actually earning a lot more than some senior lawyers in some firms. So the graduate trainee position, number one, is not as lowly as you think, and it's not like you are an intern. You are actually a lawyer. It's just that is the streets. That is the position you are. That's your rank in the structure. So if that is what you get, please take it. That's if other terms are comfortable for you. So take it. The reason you are taking it is because many top law firms, especially tier 1 law firms.
6, but I think it's too small set to be divided into 6.
Sorry?
This one. Hold on.
Hello? Am I being heard?
Yeah, it's audible. You may proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that many top
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Many top tier law firms actually do not always recruit from outside. So it's like a promotional structure. When they recruit you as a graduate trainee, and then you climb the ladder up to the position where you want to be. So many times it's always great to take a graduate training position when you can. That's if the remuneration and the other terms are fine by you anyway. Next is to leverage on relationships, like Mrs. Oluwatoyin already mentioned. Leverage on relationships. Talk to people. Let people know that you are on the lookout to get, even if you are already employed and you are just trying to get a better job. Let people know that, oh, I'm trying to get something else. I'm trying to get a better job. I'm trying to. If you know someone that works at a particular organization where you want to be, you should let them know that, oh, I'm trying to apply to your organization. If you are putting a word for me, I would really love that, or I would appreciate that. Leverage on relationships. Let your friends. When I say leverage on relationships, I don't mean that you should start looking for new people that you've not known before. Yes, you should connect with new people, but the people that you already know can actually also be of help to you. So leverage on relationships, and that's all we have on making applications. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this slide is the last level, or is the last rank in our job hunt cycle. We've gone from preparation. We've done a lot of preparation. We've done our CV writing, written our CV. We have made applications, and thankfully, we have now been invited for interview. So these are tips that can help you to ace an interview. The first one that I have here is to never go to an interview unprepared. This sounds cliche, but the truth of the matter is many people actually go to interviews clueless. I don't know what could be the cause. Probably overexcitement, overconfidence, or they just don't know what to do, or they are just not used to that terrain yet. I don't know. But never you go to an interview unprepared. Always make sure that you are prepared to the T. You dot your T's. I mean, you cross your T's and dot your I's. Make sure that you have everything that you need. Make sure that you've studied enough. Make sure that you know your onions enough. Next is to study the job description. So the vacancies will usually tell you the job description. They'll tell you the qualifications. They'll tell you the roles that you are going to be playing if you get that particular job. So study it well and know your onions. For example, if you are going for a tech interview and they're asking you about some software and you're like, what do you mean? What's that? It's not going to speak well, about you. And even if they tell you that, oh, we'll get back to you, trust me, they will not. So always go to your interview very prepared and study the job description. Know your onions. If you're a lawyer, be a well-informed lawyer. If you're an accountant, be a very good accountant. If you're into fintech, please know your onions. If you're an engineer, know your onions. Let your pedigree not just be in a fine or well-designed CV, but that you actually know what you are doing. Next is to study your CV and be ready to defend it. This is where I remind you to never lie on your CV. So after we have done a lot of reiteration about that, you should study your CV. So know everything that you have written in your CV. Know the skills that you have put there, especially if you engage the services of a professional CV writer. That means you didn't write the CV yourself. You engage someone else's service to write it for you. Study what is there. Know the achievements that you have put there that you achieved in your job, in your previous jobs. Know the way your education is structured, know the certificates, know your memberships, you just have it's not like you don't know your own life story, but just be prepared, even to the point of knowing everything that you have put in your CV. Because sometimes your interviewer would ask you a thing or two just by looking at your CV. Next is to run a thorough research on that organization. I did an interview some time ago, not very recently, but some time ago, and they were asking me, what do you know about us? And I said a thing about, I said something I had found on their website, and they were like, no, they want to hear something that is not generally out there, is not on their website. So for you to know that kind of information, that means you have done a lot of in-depth research on them, not just on their website. Don't just sleep on their website. Check for them on Google. Look for things that people would not usually pay attention to. Next is to practice and hone your confidence. This is especially if you are still trying to get yourself in the space of being a public speaker, especially if you are just coming out of the university. You have not really been into the terrain of attending interviews. You could use you could use the method of looking into a mirror, asking yourself questions, practicing what you want to say, having someone else ask you questions and answer, and things like that. So practice. When you have practiced a lot, it will help you to boost your confidence. When you know what you are doing as well, it will boost your confidence. Next is to have a logical answer to every question. Don't when you go for an interview, don't let there be a lot of I don't know it. I hope you guys understand what I mean. Don't let there be so many questions that they'll ask you and you'll be like, oh, I don't know about that, or I've not heard about that, or I don't know this, I don't know that. So it's always great to have a logical answer. Even if you don't have a factual answer, that means you're not very, very sure. Have something logical to say. But if you don't have something logical to say, it is not entirely a crime to say that you don't know. So, to give a balance, I have not said that you should not say that you don't know if you actually don't know. But don't let there be too many things that you don't know in an interview. So, have a logical answer to every question, and if you don't have, please say you don't know so that you don't speak off points. If you can, ask a question about it. Next is to maintain eye contact with your interviewer. Don't be on the edge. So what eye contact does is that it gives an aura of confidence, like this person is not under pressure, is not shaking, is not is not hiding away their face, and this person is just confident to say whatever they have to say, and this person is ready to take on the responsibilities. So maintain eye contact if you can, and don't be on the edge. When I say don't be on the edge, I mean don't exhibit mannerisms like running your palms together a lot, or shaking, or just not being relaxed and all of that, because they are a pointer, or they are pointers to the fact that you are not very confident about what you are saying, or generally. Next is to watch out for mannerisms and reflex actions that show you are scared. I just talked about that. Don't, even if you are tensed, or if you are having what we like to call stage fright, don't let it show, right? Don't let it be obvious that you're anxious. So watch out for mannerisms. When I say watch out for mannerisms as well, I mean watch out for saying things like like I just did. Watch out for saying things like those filler statements. They are really not necessary, honestly. And it's a great thing for you to be able to say your words or your sentences expressly, to be very fluent in everything that you are saying. It's also a testament to the fact that, oh, this person is very aware of what they are talking about. They are not just trying to conjure it up, or they are not just trying to look for something to say in their head. So yeah, look out for mannerisms. Next is never be afraid to call the numbers you are worth. Okay, so as a young lawyer, if you're a young lawyer, there are some places that, there is a particular stage in your life, especially if you are just coming out of law school and you're really, should I say, desperate you are really anxious to get a new job, and then you get into this interview and they are calling prices for you that are just not feasible. You should never be too afraid to call the numbers that you deserve. So before we get to this point, remember that we have talked about knowing your onions. So there's something I like to say, that thing is to be in demand so that you can make demands. Be in demand so that you can be able to make demands. If you know what you are saying, they know that if we let this person go, we are the ones at a loss. They will know that even if you call the number, even if they want to reduce the numbers, it is not going to be too much. It is going to still be something that you can work with. And so that's the point. Never be too afraid, or never be afraid at all, Seth, to call the numbers that you are worth after displaying your intellectual prowess and your expertise. Your experiences are there, your skills are there, your brain is there, everything is on fire. Call the numbers that are worthy of the value that you're going to be adding to that organization. And you should decide this number before you go home. Before you leave your house. How do you decide the number? Ask questions from people that are in the same industry. Do an online research. You can ask Google, or even Meta these days. Ask AI, ask Google, what's the price range for this role, especially in this organization? So that you will not undercharge. Because if you undercharge, your recruiter will be like, oh, okay, no problem, we'll get back to you. They're not going to raise it higher for you. So always make that decision before you leave your house. For this role I'm going for, I should be able to get this amount. And once you decide the amount, also take it higher a notch, so that even if your interviewer wants to negotiate, they want to bring it down, it will still fall into a number that you can work with. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Next is ask questions. And when I say ask questions, I mean ask intelligent questions. And if you do the thorough research that you're supposed to do, you would actually have questions. You have questions for your interviewer. Do a research about the organization. Look out for the leaders, look out for their board, look out for the things they've done before. Ask questions. Why is this not happening? Why is that not happening? Why has that happening? Ask personal questions or semi-personal questions to the interviewer as well. How has working here been for you? What is the work-life balance in this organization? How has been the structure of this organization for talent development or professional growth and stuff like that? What has been the biggest challenge this organization has faced, and how did you guys go through it? What is the challenge that the organization is going through at the moment? Different intelligent questions, they position you as someone that is really interested in adding value to this organization. You're really interested in not just taking from them, but actually doing something, trying to bring solutions to the problems that they might be having, or the reason why they might be trying to hire someone. If they ask you a question and then you give an answer and they say, oh no, that's not correct, please, if you are very sure that your answer is correct, politely disagree. I say this because sometimes it might be a trick to intimidate you, to see if you really know what you are doing, if you are really sure of what you are saying. So sometimes if you are very sure that the answer, what you have said, is actually correct, you should say it. And even if what they are saying is correct, but what you are also saying is also correct, it's just from a different perspective, politely point that out. It points you out, or it distinguishes you as someone that is very cerebral, someone that is very critical in their thinking, someone that is not just a yes kind of person. So yeah, ask questions, politely disagree when you are sure that you are correct. And then be ready with solutions to problem questions. So I say this because I think that many of us here are lawyers. If you go to an interview sometimes your interviewer might like to ask you for real life questions. I mean, sorry, so they might like to ask you real life questions. They might like to ask you what we call problem questions in school, or they'll just be like, "Oh, this happened, that happened, that happened. What do you think is the next line of action as a lawyer? What are you going to do as this person's solicitor?" So be ready to give answers to problem questions, and that also stems from knowing your onions in that field, not just knowing what you have been taught, but also thinking through it and reasoning out, thinking about questions around it, thinking about real life scenarios and how you can apply what you have learned. Because knowledge is best described with application. So it's not just enough for you to be informed. It is great for you to apply what you've learned. Next slide, please. I think I'm way out of time, but yeah, this is my conclusion. The best CVs, having the very well designed CV is not as important as being the best person for that job. So the way you designed your CV, having it greatly designed or perfectly designed with all the organization and everything is not as important as the content of that CV itself. So, like I said, to get the best job, you have to be the best candidate. So, thank you for having me. May the odds
Thank you, ma'am.
always be in your.
Thank you for the presentation. Before we move to our question and answer session, please everyone turn on your video for a quick screenshot. We'll take a picture and proceed to the question and answer session. So if you are in a suitable place, please everyone turn on your video. Thank you. Yeah. Once again, if everyone is in a suitable place, please turn on your video for a quick screenshot, and we'll move into our question and answer session. Thank you. Okay. Thank you everyone for the quick screenshot. We now open the floor to questions, so please feel free to ask our mentors any questions you have. You can raise your hand or can type your questions in the chat box. If anyone has questions, you can turn on your mic and ask our mentors.
Okay, good evening. So I had a question. I'm an undergrad law student at Now University. And the first time I tried to make a CV, I was told that, oh, you know, the same way the first presenter said that you have to make statements whereby you outline what you did and then outline the result of that action. So people can quantify the actual impact of what you did. And so with that, I had like a administrative role in school. And in that administrative role, I got a sexual predator fired and I put it in my CV. And then my superior, when I gave it to him, he said, oh, take this out because people will get scared if they see that, oh, like you complained about a particular lecturer or sports coach resulting in termination of his employment. People will get afraid in seeing that in your CV. So I wanted to know about the opinions of our mentors today on that specific type of attribution to your CV.
Hi, Malbong. Did you say you go to Nile University? Is that what you said, Nile?
Yes, currently, yes.
That's in Abuja, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So first of all, well done, for getting that done. just made the environment more safe for people. But my question would be the purpose. What is the purpose of having that particular bit of information in your CV? Remember, your CV is a tool to sell your skills, experiences, knowledge to a potential employer. So is that the employer, for instance, is that a space where something like that would be relevant? Is that a space where something like that is valued? Is it like an NGO that that has a focus on protecting young women or men or young sexual predators? And that's
I understand.
focus. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it's like if it's the information isn't going to be valuable to the person you're sending it to, then leave it out. What I would say, especially because the same way the victims have a caucus that enjoy seeing those things happen. The people who are in those levels have also, some of them rightly, suffered unjust terminations because somebody accused them falsely or misinterpreted their intentions. And so if it looks like you're the sort of person that has a beef in quotes against people in authority to the point that you get them fired, it looks like you're signaling to them that you guys be on your toes because I'm going to have my eyes on you. And if you do something that appears that you're stepping out of line, then I'm going to come for you, that sort of thing. So yes, I don't recall the explanation your coach gave about leaving it out, but I would say if the information isn't relevant to the target or the recipient of your CV, then it's okay to leave it out. It may be a good conversation point when you're actually sitting for an interview. Also, if it's relevant, you understand what I mean. But if it's not, then just leave it out, is what I would say.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Podikonve. Next, we have a question from Victor Atta. So you can turn on your mic and ask your question.
Okay,
Victor.
thank you. Okay, the
It was
question
for
I'd like
Victor. You can proceed next after.
Yes, thank you to our mentors. I really appreciate your time. My question is, what about the situation where in an interview, the interview is conducted by a hiring company, and the hiring company is not willing or ready to disclose the company or the firm for which they are hiring? How would you be able to really prepare for such an interview to really get? Sometimes they do not put the full detail of the job description. How would you be able to really prepare for such an interview? Because you don't really know the company, you really don't even know what to look at, especially about the company. And then secondly, what kind of question would you ask such a hiring company, knowing fully well that they are not the ones that are going to actually employ you? For instance, you want to ask about maybe the challenges the company is facing, and the hiring company is not or does not have the information. What do you do in such circumstance? Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Negus, I don't know what format you want me to take one question, then Onyi takes another question. I don't want to monopolize the responses. So is it should she take this one, or would you direct it to who you want to take it? I want to understand the format.
Hello, Ma. So in this instance, we would just want to give like an open floor to the mentors, right? Based off of the information they have in regards to the question that has been asked. They can just jump on the question to answer.
What do you mean?
Did you hear me, Ma?
Can ask
Yes. yes, both mentors can actually jump on the questions to answer.
All right, thank you very much. Victor, so from my perspective, and I'm sure you will have one or two things to say as well. Yes, there are some middlemen, like recruitment companies or consulting companies that do hire on behalf of a client. And the truth is that because of the nature of the client, they may not want to disclose the name until you're shortlisted for the next stage, right? So the type of questions they will ask you will align with the job description that they have posted or the specific experience or exposure they request. So you have those sort of short job descriptions that say job adverts that say things like if you have 3 years experience in software development and you have a degree in this particular course, send your application, your CV to whichever email address, and it turns out that it's a hiring company that wants to do that. Typically, they shouldn't, because if it's a hiring company like a recruiter or consulting firm, it should actually be more detailed and more professional, especially because you won't be able to ask specific questions about the company, right? And you can't like do some research about the company because you don't know who the company or who the hiring the company is. So what you tend to do is to focus on your knowledge base in your area of expertise, which is what they are likely to ask for. So if they're asking you for 3 years experience in user interface or some sort of specific software development, then it's likely that a lot of the questions are going to be technically inclined. Now, after that, going on from that, you can ask questions about the client. You can ask what kind of industry do they play in, for instance, which kind of industry they play in, what will you be required to do on a daily basis on the job. Depending on what the hiring company or the middleman has been advised, they may or may not be able to give you a lot of information. But if they believe the way you respond is good enough, then they can move you on to the next stage. Then you were saying that what kind of questions can you ask? I think I've covered things like that, like the industry they play in. What kind of industry is it? Is it something like, is it an owner managed company? Is it a multinational? How long have they been in existence? Can you tell me about their business operations? What sort of sector do they work in? What kind of business are they into? So those are the kind of questions that you can ask about such companies. So I'll yield the floor to you now. Thanks, Victor.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful answer. I agree to everything that you have just said, Mrs. Choi. I'll just add, because I heard Victor ask that if the job description is not given, how do I prepare for the interview? So my answer is in line with the role. I believe that if even if the job description is not given, the role will be stated, right? That is how you know that, oh, this is something I want to apply for. So if you want to prepare for that kind of interview, that's for the first stage, where they are not going to be asking you about the company or the organization because you don't know the organization. I think you can use the internet to look out for similar vacancies and the job descriptions listed there under, to know the things that role, the particular role that you're applying for, is going to require you, the requirement, the job descriptions, to know what that role is going to require you to do. So you can use the internet to do that research, and then from the next stage, you take the advice that Mrs. Tony has just given.
Okay, then Victoria, you can proceed with your question.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, initially I thought you called my name because I had Victoria. I didn't know you called Victor Atta. Thank you. Okay, so my question is, how do you curate your CV in a way that, for example, you've gone through a training at your place of work and there is no certification, but you know that this training is actually really vital, but there is no certification. How do you put it on your CV in case there are, like you have to put your certifications and trainings? For trainings that there are no certification, but the knowledge is actually vital to the role you're applying for. So how do you place that? That's my question. Thank you.
Hello, Victoria. Thanks for your question. So there's a difference between a certification and a training, a certification and a certificate, right? So generally, a certification has to do with uh, an addition to your professional capacity. So something like, for me as an HR professional, a certification for me would be CIPM. It's a recognized professional certification. For a law student, I believe ICSAN would be a certification that you have. So that speaks to your professional competence and prowess, right? And there's usually an accreditation body that is licensed to issue you that certificate, right? Well, that certification, I should say. A certificate of you can receive for a training attended, like just like a call things like but certificate of participation or certificate of attendance, just to show that you participated in that training and that you were exposed to that knowledge. So if you're going to put it in your CV, you need to distinguish between certifications and getting certificates for a training. So if you attended a training, even if you don't have a certificate for it, the fact is that you attended the training. So you can say that, okay, you have under the heading trainings, you can say you attended this training. Some people lump them together and say certifications and trainings, and then just list everything. So you have the subject matter or the name of the certifying body. You have the year, some do month and year that you received that certification. For the training, it would be the name of the training, possibly the training provider, then the month and the year that you received the training. So that's how I would distinguish between certification and like a certificate of participation or attendance for a training or capacity building session you attended.
Okay, thank you, Ma. Yes, I actually understand, but I think maybe you didn't actually get my question right, Ma. I mean, okay, maybe I didn't couch it, but I mean, for trainings that you didn't get certificate for, like, let me use this as an example. At my place of work, I underwent some training some weeks ago. There was no certificate because it happened at the like in-house training, but I know that that skill is actually vital in case I want to apply for another job, but there is no certificate because it happened in the office, within the office setting. So that's my question. Like, how do you put it on your CV? For some organizations, they will require that you bring all your certificates for all the trainings you've attended.
Okay, so I think for me, I'll let Sonia answer as well. For me, I think you can include the certificate, sorry, the training, the name of the training. In the way I typically would recommend, I should say, you to state the training would be the training itself. That's the name of the title of the training. You could include the person, the training provider or who demonstrated. You could say it's an in-house training, right? And then the dates and the month and the year, or whatever. So if it's stated on your CV that was an in-house training taken by someone in-house, an in-house internal faculty, the likelihood of them asking for certificate is less. I don't know. Or alternatively, you can leave it out if you want to. But as an HR professional, I can tell you that we are aware that training takes place where it is a faculty, internal faculty, that issues that delivers the training. And because of that, we won't be demanding certificates. In fact, I don't know that there are many people nowadays that insist you show certificates of trainings. What they're likely to do more is to show certifications from those professional bodies that validate your knowledge. So maybe you've encountered other things, but that is what I have seen in my experience. So I'll let Oyin answer as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, so in addition to what Mr. Tony just said, I think apart from listing as just a training, you can include it as a skill. You can put it under your skills. So, for example, maybe you got employed in your onboarding or some project management or whatever. You can include it as part of your skills. Do you get what I'm saying? You can
Yes,
include it as a skill, apart from listing it as under a training that does not require certificate for citing. So you can list it as a skill.
okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. If we don't have any more live questions, we have 2 questions from the chat box. We'll move to the questions from the chat box. So we have a specific question for Ms. Pudi Kombe. The question says, does the order of reverse chronological take priority over relevance to the job description? Shall I read it again?
Yes, I want to get the question. So does the order of what, please?
Does the order of reverse chronological order take priority over relevance to the job description?
Okay, sorry if you don't mind. My son is Podicombe, so the B is silent and so is the E. Yeah, I know I get it all the time, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
So it's the order of reverse chronological take priority over relevance to the job description. In the priority, yes, but this is the way I would typically advise in my experience that you handle it. What you want to do, right, is what you can do, an option I would say, is to, sorry, give me a minute. There's sorry about that. What you can do is to create an achievement heading where that part of your experience that's relevant to the job description is sort of highlighted. So for instance, I mentioned to you if I was going to do something, I mentioned something about I'm doing a job that required skills in one area, and then I'm applying for a job in skills in another area, which I have, but hadn't been doing. So what I would do is to create an achievement heading in my CV, maybe after my professional profile and my skills, to emphasize those parts of my experience that had to do with what the job description requires. That wouldn't distort the order in which I outlined my work history. I wouldn't say because that part of my history that requires the experience they're asking me for, maybe that happened in my last job and I'm in a new job now. Because of that, I'll put my last job first and then my new job after, even though my newer job is more recent. I will just create another heading where those particular skills and experiences are highlighted, and then still continue to order my work history chronologically from most recent to least recent. So that is how I would handle that specific situation.
Thank you. If our other mentor has anything to say on this specific question, I can move to the next question.
I think I'm moving. Did you get me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can move to the next question. I agree with what Mr. Strange just said.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, how can I draft my CV in a way that filters me from toxic workspaces or environments?
Can I answer first?
Yeah.
I'm very particular about this question. I've been waiting to answer it. So your CV is supposed to be designed to be sent to many organizations. I do not think that you can filter your CV from toxic environment. So what you need to do is prepare a great CV, get that interview. When you get to the interview, please do not be afraid to ask about the work um the work atmosphere of that organization. It's one of the questions, one of the uh questions that the semi-personal questions I mentioned that you can ask your interviewer, because many times if your interviewer is not a hiring company that is coming from outside, they actually work in the organization as well. So ask them, how has working here been for you? What's the work-life balance role? How is the work atmosphere in this place? Would you say that there is any form of toxicity? What would you say has been the level of high-handedness in this organization? Please, when you're asking this, don't ask this in an unpolite way, because they have, I mean, many recruiters, I think, have labeled Gen Z people as being rude, and but then I think it's a very important question that you should ask. And apart from even asking, there are some things that you would see even in the course of the interview that would give you a sign that this is some place you have to remove your shoes, hold them on your head with one hand, use one hand to hold one of your ears, and do what? And run. When you see some of these things going on in the interview, someone is screaming at you during an interview, or is screaming at someone else during an interview, or someone is they are sending you email in the midnight, or there are some things that you will just see and you know that, if I enter this place, it is one chance. So that is how you filter, that is how you remove yourself from toxic environments.
Thank you. If Miss Pradicom has anything to say, we can move to the next question.
Okay, thank you, Nigas. I think you got my surname very well. Clapping for you. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Because there are things that you would notice. For instance, if they're edgy when you ask them some questions, that should be a bit of a red flag to you. But you also have to be observant. Look around. How are you received right from the beginning? From the gate man to the receptionist to whoever sees you, some worker there, how do they treat you? Were they polite? They give you, they answered your questions properly. Things like that. How did they greet you when you entered? If they keep on asking specific questions that have to do with maybe personal questions, if you're married, or are you expecting to have children within the next couple of weeks or months or whatnot, things like that tend to be a bit of a red flag. They ask you things like, what's your view about things like, maybe remote working or hybrid working, or if scenarios where if your job calls you, your boss calls you on a weekend and needs a report on time, you'll be amazed. Things as obvious as that. What will you do, and things like that. So, like Onyi has very rightfully said, be very observant and pay attention to some of those red flags that can show that they may want they may want to absorb your life into that organization.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions left. The next question will be, after personal physical internship, they don't usually tender any evidence of such internship. How do I input it? Do I just state it that I interned in a particular firm, stating the name of the firm, and it says, what if asked to tender certificate to that effect?
Okay, so I want us to be very clear to distinguish between an internship and a volunteer opportunity. Because when it's an internship, it's usually organized, right? If it's something that your school, for instance, has asked you to do, they would typically give you something like a workbook, or they would give you a letter from the school stating that you're a student of the school, you need to do internship for a certain period of time, they should offer you relevant assistance, etc., etc. There will be a letter from your school to show that you are there on an internship capacity. And when you are done, either you have your logbook with you, which you should, or there's a clearance letter from the organization saying that, oh, you've completed your internship, you were here between ABCD time and ABCD time, etc., etc., etc. So there's usually some evidence that supports an internship. If it's a volunteer job that you did where you wanted to just do some work to keep yourself busy, in such cases there may not be like a structured way for them to clear you or state that you volunteered, but you could request for them to write you a letter saying that you volunteered with them, this was your role, these are the things that you did, as sort of evidence to back the experience or skills gained while you're volunteering. So that is what I would say. Internships are usually structured, and there's usually documentation from your school or from the organization to support the fact that you intern there. Is what I would say.
Thank you, Miss Oyin Kansola. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, yes. If I get that question right, I think the person is asking how they can put it in their CV. So, yes, your internship is a work experience, actually. That's if you didn't know before. So, if you're looking for where to impute it, if you're looking for the section to impute it in your CV, it should be under your work experiences. So, once you put the name of the organization, your role, the year, the location of the organization, not the full address, like I always say, the location, maybe just Lagos or Ibadan, whatever. The year, just the way you would include a normal job experience that you are paid for. So that's why I mentioned when we were talking about the preparation stage about paid and unpaid internships. So even if they didn't pay you, even if they didn't give you a certificate, sorry, it is a work experience. So you would cite it, you would state your achievements while being an intern, and how because it's an internship, you would not be given, or you would normally not be given duties or responsibilities that would actually give you the opportunity to do a lot in adding value, like maybe taking a very strong leadership role or something. But whatever you do, whatever adds value to you, that you can use to add value to the new organization, you should cite it as well. So it's a job experience.
Thank you. We have traditional new questions. It says, what is the difference between academic CV and professional CV? And how should a CV for application for fully funded postgraduate scholarship be customized?
Okay, I can answer the first part of that question. I think when it comes to the graduate and such, I think that's Uyi's area of expertise, because I don't write CVs for that sort of application. The difference between an academic CV and a professional CV is I don't think it's some elements within that CV, the academic CV, as opposed to the professional CV. So for your academic CV, it would involve things like one, obviously it tends to be longer than a professional CV because they want the full scale of what you've done right from the beginning of your career to recently. I'm not sure, maybe you can help me, if they prefer you start from your first till the most recent, as opposed to the reverse chronological. I'm not quite certain of that, but it tends to be longer. Another component that tends to be included are things like papers you've written, publications that you've written, and summaries of those publications. So you write the title of the project or the publication, and then you write a summary. This was an examination into the ABCDEFG to discover whatnot. That tends to go into an academic CV. Things like also, I think that's about it really. Maybe if you've written any books, that will be included as well. I think that's what I know, because like I haven't done a lot of academic series, but I do know that they tend to put a lot of emphasis on your published works. For a professional CV, it's much more contracted, and it tends to focus, like we've mentioned, on the skills and the experience that are relevant to what the employer requires as stated in the job description. So that for me would be the major difference between the academic CV and the professional CV. I'll have Onyi go ahead and answer the other part of that question and any other contributions she has to this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, you are correct about the reverse chronological order. It is the generally accepted format. So whether it's an academic CV or it's a normal work CV, you should have everything in reverse chronological order. So that's for the question that was put to me by Mrs. Choi. So about the suitable CV for a fully funded postgraduate studies, your best bet is, in fact, it's not even your best bet. The actual CV that is necessary is an academic CV. Why? Because you need what you are looking for. I mean, what you are trying to get with the CV is an academic, should I say role? It's not a role, but it's a scholarship. So it's for academics. So you need an academic CV. That means you need to be very detailed about your academic journey. So usually I would advise that for normal work CV, anything before your university education, take it out. But for academic CVs that you're trying to use to get a scholarship, it's an academic CV. So I would advise that even to the first institution you ever attended in your life, I would advise that you keep it there, because it shows the course of your life academically. And like Mrs. Tonya said, you would need your project, your school project. Okay, so I wanted to say this, that for many people that would be like, oh, I've not written any book before, I've not published anything before. Don't forget that you wrote projects when you were in school, or you will write projects when you are in school. So your project is a publication, so to say, just that you would indicate that it's an unpublished work that you did, and you say the purpose for which you did it. So it's a research work, it's to your name. I believe it should be original to you. So it is something that you could actually cite, especially for academic CVs, and especially if you are just starting out and maybe you've not written so much. So you would list everything that Mrs. Tony has mentioned. And just to say again, the CV, the kind of CV that you need for postgraduate studies or for scholarship, even for normal admission that you're not looking for scholarship, what you need is an academic CV.
Thank you. We'll move to the last question of the day. It says, it is mentioned that we should include the conferences we attended in our CV. In a situation where we are offered a certificate of attendance, should we include such a certificate in a separate section in our CV? This is the question. I can repeat it.
Yeah, I heard the question. It's not one that comes up a lot when it comes to conferences. So maybe it's a legal thing and it's a legal requirement. But for me, I would say that that kind of falls into your training bucket. which shows how you are upskilling and updating yourself in your field. So that would tend to fall under your training bucket, under the heading that has to do with trainings. I would also say that there can be a value in you including that in some other portion of your CV, either the achievement section or your profile, if there was a specific role you played that highlighted a specific skill that is relevant to the job that you are applying for. So I would say that it's useful in so much as, one, it shows that you are someone who is interested in continual learning and you're keeping yourself on the cusp of your, the events, things going on in your industry. Or secondly, if you acquired a particular skill or knowledge that is maybe sought after, unusual, contemporary, that has to do with things like maybe digital or AI or something else that is one of those contemporary things, it might feature in some other portion of your CV, like how you introduce yourself, your professional profile, or some achievement that you had that is linked to the knowledge that you gained from that conference. So I think that's what I would say, unless it's this conference attendance is something that is valued in your field. So if such is the case, then you may want to move your training portion, the training portion of your CV, to the front page as well, so that it will be something front and center that the recruiter or the hiring manager would see when they're looking at your CV. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Choi. So as personal preference, the way I like to do it is your trainings and everything separate. And then I leave a space for conferences, because I am in the legal profession, and I know, to a very large extent, it's valued if you attend conferences, relevant conferences that are relevant to maybe you attend MBA conference, or you attend a capital market conference or energy conference, or even arbitration conference. There is no how you would attend the conference and it will not add something to you. So I leave a space for it to just state the name of the conference. I won't say theme now, so the name of the conference, the location of the conference, and then the year that you attended it. So if you did anything for that conference, if you volunteered as anything for the conference, you can duplicate it as an experience under your volunteering section. So you put the name of the conference again, you put the role that you played, maybe graphic designer or protocol or anything else, organization committee or whatever. You would put it that way, and then the year when it happened. So yeah, I like to separate trainings and conferences. And okay, so the person was asking about how they want to cite the evidence. I do not think anyone is going to ask you for the evidence of attending a conference. Usually it shows in the wealth of your knowledge that you went to this place and you acquired this knowledge. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. So, and then there would never be space for you to put your the attendance page as part of your CV, because you usually have just one page. And if you are doing a lot, maybe you've done so much in your life, you have 2 pages. I will never advise you to go beyond 2 pages if you are writing a CV, unless I like to give the exception of an academic CV, and that's because it's usually bulky. And if you have done a lot of academic work in your life, you actually should put everything, because it's part of the course of your life, which CV is actually all about.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, then this will mark the end of our session. Do not forget what you have learned on your different social media platforms, and also don't forget to tag your mentors. Also, lastly, as we come to the end of our session, I'd like to thank both our mentors, Ms. Owen Consola and Ms. Parico, for their invaluable insights, and also our mentees for their thoughtful questions. This has been an incredibly enriching session, and we appreciate everyone's participation. We look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you and have a great day. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, Ma.
Thank you, Ma. Goodbye, Ma.